one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
From USA Today, we get this story. Body camera footage from what officials have called an attack that took place inside a New York State correctional facility, resulting in the death of an inmate, was released by the New York State Attorney General's office on Friday. Now, according to New York State Attorney General Letitia James, Robert Brooks, who was serving a 12-year sentence at the Marcy Correctional Facility near Utica for stabbing his longtime girlfriend in 2016, died on December 10th after an encounter with the New York State Department of Corrections and community supervision officers at the facility on December 9th. Quote, "As Attorney General, you have my word. We will use every possible tool available to us to investigate his death thoroughly and swiftly," said James. She goes on, "These videos are shocking and disturbing, and I advise all to take appropriate care before choosing to watch them. I also want to make clear that this video and the conduct of these officers should not reflect poorly on the work and professionalism of the countless correctional officers and correctional facility nurses throughout the state who go to work every day to protect and serve those in their care." Well, we would hope, right? But here's what to know. Brooks was moved from the Mohawk Correctional Facility in Rome, New York, to Marcy Correctional Facility near Utica, and that's in New York. That was on December 9th. Now, the four released videos come from body-worn cameras of four correctional officers, Sergeant Glenn Trombley and correction officers Michael Along, Michael Fisher, and Matthew Gallagher.
These videos, which have no audio, show Robert Brooks being carried into the infirmary by correctional officers. Brooks's hands are handcuffed behind his back when officers start punching him. They then hoist him up by his neck very forcefully, and one officer starts to smack Brooks with a shoe. One officer then used his booted foot to kick and pin down Brooks. Another officer punched Brooks in his upper body, and one of the officers again punched Brooks while handcuffed. At one point, Brooks was sat up with his face bloodied, and an officer punched him again. Brooks was then pulled up by his collar and forced to the wall. The next part of the video, which we're not showing due to its graphic nature, shows Brooks being carried back to the table seemingly unconscious. Brooks died the following morning at a Utica hospital. No charges have been filed yet, but the incident is being investigated by several agencies. In court filings this week, state police investigators said that preliminary findings from the medical examiner's office showed asphyxia as a possible cause of death.
The cameras were turned on. However, since none of the officers activated their body-worn cameras, the videos were recorded in standby mode with no audio. Brooks' hands were handcuffed behind his back as multiple officers repeatedly punched him, hit him with a shoe, lifted him up by his neck, pushed him up against a wall, and stripped him of his clothing before medical professionals entered the medical examination room to assess him. Brooks was transported to a local hospital on December 9th after the use of force by correction officers, the Attorney General's office said, and then he was sadly pronounced dead at Wynn Hospital in Utica in the early morning hours of December 10th. An investigation was opened by the New York Attorney General's Office of Special Investigations, or OSI, on December 16th. Why was Robert Brooks in jail? Well, Brooks pled guilty to first-degree assault, a felony, for stabbing his longtime girlfriend on April 18th of 2016, and was sentenced to 12 years in state prison in 2017. The couple, who shared a teenage child, were involved in a physical dispute at a residence that culminated in his girlfriend being stabbed numerous times in the upper torso with a knife. That's according to the Greece, New York Police Department. Brooks ran from the scene when confronted by neighbors and was later apprehended by the police. Brooks was originally indicted on a 2-count felony indictment, including attempted second-degree murder and first-degree assault, according to court records. His plea satisfied both charges, 12 years. What Governor Kathy Hochul has said about Robert Brooks' death. Well, Governor Kathy Hochul called for the termination of 14 individuals involved in Brooks' death earlier this week.
Governor Kathy Hochul said she was outraged and horrified after seeing the video and ordered the Department of Corrections to fire the 14 employees who allegedly participated. A spokesperson for the department said that 13 of those involved have been suspended without pay and one resigned.
Quote from the governor, "This action comes after I directed an internal review of the circumstances that lead to this individual's death," she said in a written statement. She goes on, "I once again, after my condolences to the deceased individual's family and loved ones, the vast majority of correction officers do extraordinary work under difficult circumstances, and we are grateful for their service. But we have no tolerance for individuals who cross the line, break the law, and engage in unnecessary violence or targeted abuse. Both the New York Attorney General and the Department of Corrections, DOCCS Office of Special Investigations, are conducting ongoing reviews of this incident, and I am committed to accountability for all involved." Rochester Mayor Malik Evans released a statement on death of Robert Brooks. "The brutal beating of Robert Brooks, captured in the videos released today by New York State's Attorney General, was beyond horrific." He goes on, "My heart goes out to Mr. Brooks' family and friends, and I call on all of Rochester to keep them in your prayers as they process this terrible incident. Those responsible for this appalling act must be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. I expect justice will be served expeditiously." Well, Malik Evans, I don't agree with you in terms of I don't expect anything to happen expeditiously. I don't expect any of these people will be convicted to the full extent of the law. But I do agree with you that I want it to happen. And some people may say, "Oh, the guy stabbed his girlfriend and he, and yeah, okay, maybe Robert Brooks was a POS. Maybe so. George Floyd was a POS. I mean, he was. But does that justify the death sentence, the death penalty by people who are paid to preserve life and protect the public? I mean, there are times when somebody commits a crime and you or I say, "Yeah, you know what? That dude deserves a punch in the mouth. I'd like to beat that dude down the middle of the street until I see his blood flow." Sometimes we say things like that, but it does not justify a police officer nor a corrections officer doling out that punishment. It's not your job to do that. And the reason we don't want them doing that is, where do we draw the line? Where do we say, okay, this is the line, don't step over it? Like, they're going to be like, "Yeah, whatever. You didn't have a problem with me beating that dude over there." That would be their argument. So the only way to keep law enforcement from committing excessive use of force and abuse and assault is to say zero tolerance. Even though there are some criminals we'd love to see it, I'd love to see that dude get his ass beat. No, zero tolerance. Because where do we draw the line? Where do we say, okay, this one, yeah, this one, nah. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, obviously there are times we want it, just can't have it because it gets abused. And as you see here, 14 individuals she wants terminated. See how many get charged. See how many get convicted.